night, Belizeans, at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs show number 180, 180, for Monday, 12th of August, 2024. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'll be your temporary chairman for tonight until the chairman shows up. We're starting off the show a few minutes late tonight, and I'll just fill in and improvise, and I'll follow the same format as we do, and therefore I'll start the program by offering a short word of prayer, after which I'll do a short reading from the Bible, and then I'll get into the meat of the presentation for tonight. I'll just bow my head for a couple of seconds. Divine loving Father, as we come before thy presence, once more we ask that thou mayest continue to have mercy upon us, that thou mayest continue to guide us, protect us, give us strength, courage, endurance, perseverance, grant us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And we pray that thou mayest bless this program tonight and help us to present a program that accrues to the best interest and well-being of our country of Belize, its people, and its leadership. We pray that thou mayest bless them and bless also this country of the United States, its people, and its leadership. Bless the rest of humanity through loving for them, especially those people who are in harm's way, in hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, and the many other devastating things that are happening in this world, especially those that are in the middle of wars and who are suffering unduly, sometimes for no justifiable reason. We pray that thou mayest have mercy upon them as well. Please continue to be with us now and always, for we pray these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen. The reason why I'm launching the program a little late is because our other panelists are not available to us at the last minute. Mr. Wade is traveling up north and may not get back in time before the show actually finishes. And my good cousin is dealing with some electronic issues. So if he's able to make it to the show before the show finishes, I'll just then turn over the show to him because he's the chairman for tonight. But in the interim, in the interest of timeliness and in consideration of the fact that we have an assigned timing with some people who tune into the show while it is live and others who tune in at their own convenience after the fact, we still need to present the show or a show. So I'll just proceed by reading. Just let me go up here. I'll read Proverbs chapter 11, and I'll start at verse 1. A false balance is abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When pride cometh, then cometh shame, but with the lowly is wisdom. The integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. Riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by the wayside, shall fall by his own wickedness. And that will be the ending of our reading for tonight as well. If you spare me a second, I just want to make sure that the rest of the program is live. So I'll just double check here and see what needs to be done. Make sure that everything is worked out. I need to put it on public. So just bear a second with me as I do that, please. No, I Need to do the. Okay, so I said it on public. It should be public now for everybody else on the internet to be able to do their reviews. And I normally have a modification that I do, but in the interest of the time that I have available to me, and since I'm operating as a single individual tonight, I won't be able to fill that in until after maybe after the show or at some other point. I'll just oh. I have on the wrong set. I'm sorry. Okay. I had on the wrong headset just now, and I was dealing with some other matters and not realizing that I hadn't put on the headset for the show. So please forgive me for that. The show is actually live now, though, and I did some house cleaning that I had to complete just now, even though I was doing it without the correct headphone. The house cleaning is done, so everything is in order, and I'm going to move forward right now. Let me do that. And so I want to go here and pull up this item. Okay. And our show for tonight will be dealing with some constitutional matters as well. We know for a certainty, based on what the chairman from the current PCC stipulated not too long ago, is that they're not doing any more education, but they're actually compiling the information that they are presumably acquired. Now, I don't know how much information and what type of information they acquired after not having done an adequate enough education campaign so that the people can decide what is in their constitution after they have been educated, and then be able to say what is it that they want to keep or what is it they want to leave out, or whether they want to have a new constitution. I know the people who have set this process in motion want to get to a new constitution, a Republican constitution. And they are just trying to hide behind the fractal of the general public to try and get them there through a bamboozling process. But for tonight's program, I want to read this article from October 20th of 2021, written by myself. And it starts like this. Belize Constitution Reform Commission, that is, the Belize PM is hiding behind, so we need to be aware that that is the case. Take heed. Belize lacks talent, intelligence aggregation, and deciphering analysis. That is, to aggregate the information that is out there and available to us, some of us who don't spend enough time and care or interest in being able to aggregate that information. Therefore, we don't have the ability to parse that information or analyze that information and understand what that information means in terms of how it affects us by the behavior of our government. I went on to ask a series of questions. I have question number 1. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, understands contextually the meaning and implication of the term or word sedition, as imbued and used or outlined in the Constitution of Belize? I further ask another question. Question number 2. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, realizes or knows that neither he or any other officials, Belizeans, are above the laws or the Constitution of Belize and could be exposed to charges of sedition for seditious intents and activities? I added an additional question, question number 3. which goes like this. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, abhors, disagrees with the Constitution of Belize as it currently is, and would like to abrogate, would like to arbitrarily and capriciously make changes, which appears to be his wet dream? I pose that a further question, question number 4, which goes like this. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, understands, realizes that the Constitution of Belize, as a living, self-preserving document, provides guide rails, protocols, procedures, processes, and practices for the lawful and legal constitutional amendments or alterations thereof? I pose a further question number 5, which reads as follows. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, realize or really accept the limitations on his powers as Prime Minister of Belize, whilst not being Belize's head of state, from whom he acquired the ascension of powers to govern Belize? I pose a further question, question number 6. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, wishes Belize to dispense with all remaining British colonial vestiges that currently overshadows Belize's conditional independence, as his predecessors or former prime ministers did? I not only went on to pose another question, I went on to pose 2 extra questions, which question number 7 would read like this. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, truly knows and understands what is the British High Commission and its purpose or function in Belize, as compared to a British embassy in other independent countries? And then to question number 8, which reads as follows as well. Does the Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, understands and realize that he cannot be found to be attempting to suborn the Governor General of Belize, who serves at the pleasure of Belize's head of state, and whose appointment is subject to recall by that head of state? You may recall in a previous show, I think it may have been last Friday or Friday before, where I brought up some issues that relates to the Constitution of Belize and the PCC, as well as the power and authority vested in the Governor General and the Deputy Governor General, and the concern I had for the person who is acting sometimes as Deputy Governor General, while at the same time being one and the same person acting as Secretary to the Cabinet, which is a contravention of our Constitution, and I would say an illegal and unrealistic or unreasonable scenario, because you cannot have the Cabinet Secretary who works at the pleasure of the Prime Minister to be sitting down in Cabinet meetings while at the same time occupying the vestiges and powers of the Governor General, who actually is the person that gives the Cabinet its ascension of powers to be able to govern, and also gives the Prime Minister the powers to govern. That is that when should or could or would the head of state serves at the pleasure of the Prime Minister, when that is actually the opposite. The Prime Minister serves at the ascension by the Governor General to grant him that power and privilege to serve after the people elect him. So how can we have the horse behind the cart, pushing the cart up the hill, and expect that that is good and proper or adequate procedures, protocols, or practices? There are different phrases or words that you can use for such a concept, but I wouldn't venture into disgracing my show and my lips with any of those words to describe such a scenario. I'll just move on and continue the reading of that particular essay or commentary. I then went on to say, note well, the following commentary was made by Leonard Brackett as an overview to questions from Mr. Gregory Brackett on statutory instruments versus the Constitution of Belize, Acts, and intended amendments and alterations thereto. I titled that particular commentary, The Constitution of Belize, Bastardization or Challenging Pandora's Box. I said, Belize at 40th year of independence, of course, now remember, when I'm saying 40 years now, this was actually done in 2021. So it's not like I'm saying it now with 48 years. No, it was 48 year. It was about 40 years in 2021 because we got independence in 1981. So when I was writing this article or this commentary, in response to the questions that was asked about modifications to the Constitution, it was about 40 years and counting at that time. So the Constitution of Belize, Bastardization, Challenging Pandora's Box, Belize at 40 years of independence, the Prime Minister, Mr. John Briceño, wet dream is to have a Constitution of Belize revamping. So he did not put that item on his manifesto when they wanted to run for us to vote them in and give them the power of governance. But as soon as we gave them that power of governance, he made a switch and bait on us. And he turned around and decided that he wanted to go ahead and launch a constitutional review commission with the intention of trying to turn Belize into a republic, and then go ahead and change our constitution that will facilitate him not only being able to run as a president and maybe win, but give him the possibility for us to end up like a Nicaragua, right? Where he'll be able to reign supreme without any checks and balances and rule forever. Now, not only Nicaragua have that option, there are other countries that have that option, but they did not put that to us as a part of the manifesto for us to contemplate and or to agree to. They just took the powers vested in them and decided to arbitrarily and capriciously pretend that there is no constitution under which they are obligated and they actually signed allegiance to before they were assented the power of governance by the Governor General. But now that they have the power of governance in their hands, that they could just dismiss the Constitution as an irrelevant piece of set of papers and pretend that they have supreme power over the Constitution and the country. And the Constitution, as it says in Section 2, in Part 1, Section 2, Subsection 1, the Constitution of Belize is the supreme law of the country. And any law or other law that the legislator may make that is inconsistent with the Constitution of Belize is null and void. But these jackals are hijacking the process and pretending to do what they want with the powers, because we, the people, are not going to overthrow them. We're too docile for that. Or we're not going to have nobody go and arrest them like a police commissioner or one of the police officers, because they're too timid and too scared for their own jobs or probably their own lives. So these bunch of hyenas and jackals and mafia running our government under the guise of a government as a bunch of mafia cabals are just taking us to the cleaner, spending and wasting hundreds of millions of dollars to their cronies, and misusing and abusing our treasury, and then they can't come up with money to run the government. Then they complain. Why? They have disposed of the assets of the country. They grab up the assets of the country, big tracts of lands. They take away different institutions and different, like for example, the BTL telephone company, that is public-private enterprise. And they we got it back from Mr. Ashcroft for almost $1 billion. And now they are trying to run it into the ground so that they can give it back to Mr. Ashcroft for a few pennies after it's been destroyed. They took away all the contracts from it and gave the contracts to the Prime Minister's telephone company. And they keep fleecing just about any and everything that's money making in the country or that could make some money in the country. They are grabbing and holding on to. And the Constitution says they're not supposed to do any enrichment while they're officers of the government. And the people just sit on the side, suck their finger, and wait till the next general election to collect their $50 to go and vote, and a couple of beers, and a plate of food. And that should be good enough for them for the next 5 years until the next general election. Come on, Belizeans. We are better than that. Let me go on and read the rest of the stuff, no? Well, at least a little bit more of it. I went on to say in the next paragraph, Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Mr. John Briceño, appears to be getting power drunk by announcing a Constitutional Reform Commission, CRC, to reform the Constitution of Belize into a more pliable document so as to aggregate to the government of Belize some additional powers that are vested in the Belize head of state and the people of Belize. That is, that there are certain things that they cannot do constitutionally and based on the present constitution that we have, and they want to be able to do those things. So if they can eviscerate the present constitution and write another constitution that is more pliable to their needs to enable them to rule by decree rather than being hamstrung by the constitutional requirements, such as the protection of our rights under our Bill of Rights, that they are constantly trying to violate, creating SOEs, writing SIs and creating SOEs under those SIs with the intent to pretend that those SOEs on SIs trump the Constitution, and they are then empowered to go ahead and, call in the military to assist the police to go into different communities and run roughshod over those communities because they have the communities under SOE or state of emergency. When the Constitution requires that in order for a state of emergency to be valid and viable and legal, that not only should it be assented to, but before it is assented to, there must be a catastrophic issue or actions going on in the country, such as a war with a neighboring country, or as an uprising or subversion within the country, or a major hurricane or earthquake, or major flooding throughout the country, major disaster. What the Constitution describes as catastrophic is none of the reasons why they instigate these SOEs. Okay, they put these SOEs in place in order for them to go and, like they say, deal with the gangs. Why can't you use the regular police force, even if they have to be backed up by the military, which you do anyhow, and go and arrest these jackals that are running around terrorizing the community? You already have that power vested in you and the authority as the government to do so. Why do you have to infringe on the basic right, the civil rights and the inalienable rights of all the people living in that any particular community where you go and put these SOEs and subject those people and expose those people to police brutality? That's unfair. It's unreasonable. And that is not adequate and proper government. That's an abuse of authority. Let me read on some more of the material. I did not read the final few words in that paragraph. I just want to read it because it's germane to the whole concept. So I'll just reread a little part of it just to get there. And I'll start from the part where it says, so as to aggregate to government of Belize some additional powers vested in Belize head of state, as well as vested in the people of Belize, and the constitutionally protected. The next paragraph goes on to say, this is a harbinger of what's to come. That is, riddance of existing constitutional constraints on government from the Constitution of Belize, as we currently know them to be, to a possible dictatorship, ministerial fiat governance before his current term is completed. The his referring to the Prime Minister, the current term that they are now serving. I started the paragraph by saying, the other paragraph, subsequent paragraph, by saying, both major mass parties in Belize, being the UDP and the PUP, as government of Belize, have indulged in bastardization of the Constitution of Belize in various ways to different for different reasons and objectives, and at different times, whilst attempting to govern by fiat dictatorially, by overreaching and aggregating unto themselves and exercising punitive powers with impunity at that, after Belize's independence from the 21st of September 1981. I said, note well, for example, and then I went on to list a few observations and conclusions, as a matter of fact. Under Chapter 10 of the Referendum Act as follows, subsection 2, notwithstanding subsection 1, a referendum shall be held on the following issues. And I outlined some of those issues, such as in paragraph A, I said, any amendment to Part 2 of the Constitution which derogates or take away from the fundamental human and civil rights and freedoms guaranteed therein to the citizens of Belize and Belizeans at home and abroad requires a mandamus or a referendum, without which the government have no authority then to put any SOE in place, that is, state of emergencies, or to create any SIs, that is, statutory instrument, because none of those circumstances rise to the occasion that the Constitution put as a bar or as a threshold for the government to be able to bring into existence any of those acts. They must have a catastrophic occurrence. But they want to derogate and take away people's basic civil rights under trumped up SIs. They want to rule by decree, and whatever comes out of their head becomes the law of the land of the day. Rather than the Constitution being the law of the land, the highest power of law in the land, and that dictates under what conditions any person's fundamental rights can be breached. It sets a high bar because, in effect, to start with, nobody's fundamental rights should be breached. Nobody, any inalienable rights that you are born with, should be breached. And it says to the government that you have no power and authority to make those breaches or to commit those breaches without the people's consent. We elect the officers to represent us, but they operate under the limitations of the Constitution. And in our Constitution, we the people are supreme. We are the ones that have the final say as to whether or not our government is doing what's right for us, or we don't like what the government is doing. But they expect that the only time we should be able to make any such decision is when election time comes. Other than that, they expect to sit on us and ride roughshod on us with whatever is it that they want, whether constitutionally or not, whether illegal or not. And we're supposed to just sit by and suck our fingers until they are ready to call another election and suborn some people with a little $50 or $100. As a matter of fact, during this last town board election, they were giving out 300 that I'm aware of to some people. But regardless of how much they give out, the bottom line is that those kind of little pocket change that they give these people can't last them for 5 years. So we require, as it says in our preamble, the people require the government to pursue policies of state that accrues to the best interest and well-being of the people. I want to continue reading the rest of this material. I read A. Okay, I did read A just now. It is clearly understood by most legally trained minds in Belize, being a command or a directive or a mandated or mandamus requirement, and as a bar or threshold to be overcome by constitutionally mandated public consultations and consensus acquiescence by the means of a required referendum. That is to say, the government have some limitations and bars or thresholds that they have to be able to jump over or meet, in addition to having a referendum, if they want to come to the people and ask the people to give them the permission or the powers to derogate or suspend your rights temporarily because of a war going on or some other major catastrophe going on. And therefore, under those circumstances, they can then likely be granted an SOE or a state of emergency to deal with that emergency or that catastrophic incident or circumstance. Item number 2 on that particular list, I went on to say, for example, SI number 74 of 2021, which was under the PUP Minister Shebat as Minister of Health at the time, which was done through an SI number 24, is not under declared emergency powers. It was broad, it was overreaching, it was punitive, and it was an infringement and derogation of rights contrary to the constitutional prescripts or constitutionally suspect SI, which was attempting to trump the Constitution, and it was unhinged and expanded power grab, likely arbitrary and capriciously drafted without due diligence or care. I also went on to stipulate in item number 3 under the same essay. I said under item number 3, SI number 126 of 2020, the previous year, was under the UDP Minister of Health, Mr. Marin. It was a statutory instrument number 126, which was under declared emergency, legally so, under emergency powers, because at that time we had the beginning of the pandemic, and therefore that particular SI met the threshold for suspending people's rights on a temporary basis for 30 days in order to address the issue of the border jumping, as well as the mask requirement and other things that were required that normally the society is not required to deal with, and that the government then needed to have the plurality of the people in the country following certain regulations in order to save everybody. So that was a catastrophic threshold that was met. But I did went on to say it was under declared emergency powers, but it was broad, it was overreaching, for example, in the sense where they changed the penalty of $200 for a violation of those particular statutory instruments and SIs, the conditions for those, from $200 to, I think it was $5,000. Now that was ludicrous and actually totally out of order, because there's nobody in Belize who can afford to pay the difference between $200 and $5,000 for the same fine. That was, I'll read what I stipulated on that. Let me finish the reading. I said it was overreaching, it was punitive, it was an infringement and a derogation of rights contrary to constitutionally prescriptions, and constitutionally suspect as an SI, which was intended to trump the Constitution, which an SI can never trump the Constitution. No statutory instrument, no SOE, no procedures, protocols, or practices can trump the Constitution. As I read before under Section 2 of the Constitution, it says that any other law that the legislator or a minister or anybody else in government creates that is not created within the bounds of the Constitution, and that other law is violative of the Constitution in terms of the rights of people or any other circumstance, is to be ruled as null and void. Basically, a piece of trash. In other words, it does not comport to the constitutional requirement. And you cannot derogate people's basic civil rights or their inalienable rights that they are born with just willy-nilly, just because you feel like. I went on to say it was unhinged, it was an expanded power grab, and likely arbitrary and capriciously drafted without due care, without due diligence or care. I further stipulated in another paragraph as to say punitive violations and fines, such as the Belize $5,000 as a penalty, which was initially or originally a $200, which and then I posed the question there by asking which average Belizean can afford such fines in such an increase from $200 to $5,000, which is why I described the statutory instrument as being such as I did above. I went on to clarify and state that stale dated and expired statutory instruments, such as the SIs in question, should cease to carry their original legal force or validity and should not be enforced open-endedly, but should be discontinued, taken off the books, or, at least as a minimum, legally renewed or reauthorized or refreshed. In other words, you take out, or you are given the privilege to implement a statutory instrument and create a state of emergency, which you're only authorized to do for 30 days, after which you can go back and then renew it for another 30 days. And you can go back as a government and renew that consecutively up to a year, 12 months. That's what the Constitution says. But here comes these jackals. They know that within 30 days, nobody can file a case and have that case heard at the Supreme Court of Belize within 30 days. It has never happened, and it will never ever happen because of the process, procedures, and protocols for case filing and setting up date and hearings and all the other mechanics that go into the process. So they go ahead and make these bogus SIs and SOEs for 30 days at a time. And in the instance where if they were to be taken to court for judicial review, the 30 days would be up and they'll do like they did with the SI that they created to stop people from going to the border at the Sarstone River. What they did, they never renewed it. They just let it die a natural death because after the 30 days, they realized that they were doing something wrong. We had complained about it, and they chose not to continue the violation. But for all intents and purposes, they had achieved their objective, which was to stop the people from going there. Put fear in the people. They used the BDF and the police force to stop people from enjoying and doing what the Constitution says is their right. That is that the government have no power to stop any citizen from traversing or traveling from one end of the country to the other end, or any part in between, or to leave the country or come back into the country. It is clearly stated in plain words in the Constitution. But yet these jackals, they go about pretending that they are following constitutional practices or correct procedures and practices, and they bamboozle their way and power play the situation to get what they want done. And after they get it done, they move on, and to hell with it, whatever is left behind. It's unfortunate that too many of our people go along with that kind of shenanigan, okay? Because we have seen that once they get away with a violation in one instance, they never stop. repeatedly, over and over, we have had to point out to them about these unconstitutional and illegal and bogus state of emergency that they put in place, to the point where we have even pointed out to them what the international law provides for, and that is that some of them could actually end up at The Hague for human rights violation under international law. So they took caution and decided to, step back and do things a little different. But that was just for a little while. After that little while passed, they went right back again and they did the same craziness with another SOE, statutory of state of emergency, which was not adequately put in place because, as far as we found out at the time, they had not had it signed, they had not had it gazetted, they had violated quite a few of the steps that they need to put in place or do in order, and then they had not even publicized it, so people could have known that they were under a state of emergency. All those violations make the state of emergency that they were trying to put in place be illegal, arbitrary and capricious, and a violation of the Constitution, by the way. But they didn't care. They rounded up a whole lot of people, put them in jail for 30 days, saying that they were just sending them for 30 days to let them go and sit in jail and cool off their heel. They had no respect and regards for those people's constitutional rights, or for the fact that by sending them to jail under bogus circumstance, they end up with a police record. They did not go and expunge those police records for those arbitrary and capricious and illegal actions on the part of the government. So some of those people then, when they need to travel or go abroad, they can't get a clear police record, and as a result, they will not be allowed to travel abroad. There are some countries that will not accept them to come to their country because they have a police record, despite the fact that the police record was one of a trumped-up charge that had no merits. They were not taken to court, they were not tried and adjudicated and found guilty, and therefore have a valid record. They were hauled into police custody, illegally at that. They were sent to central prison, like the Prime Minister says, to go and let them go cool off their heel. A lot of people that they sent up there had nothing to do with what they should be taking care of as a police force and as a government entity looking after the interests of the general public. They even take an underage person, a couple of teenagers. One was, I think, 12 and the other one was 13, and put them in a general prison, which under international law is forbidden. That's a crime against humanity. And after we holler at them about it, they turn around and take the kid and put them in isolation in a youth hostel. No youth is supposed to be in isolation. They know that. They don't give a hoot unless we holler at them about it or point it out to them. We shouldn't have to. They are the people that we pay to run our governance affairs. And we shouldn't have to be taking out no lawsuit against them, spending money to fight with one government who has a deeper pocket than us. Why should we have to be put into such a bind? Because of a bunch of jackals and knuckleheads who just want to play with the power that we invest in them, and then play with that power and use it against us. That's not only just a crime, that is high crime. But I'll go on. I'm elaborating and I'm, expanding and getting a hot under my collar when in fact I should be trying to finish reading so I don't run out of time. My show is just an hour and a half. I still have quite a bit of time left, so but I don't want to get bogged down into just the elaboration. I just want to make sure I finish reading this particular essay, because the points herein are very germane to what's going on in the country, and that the government needs to be taken to task for assuring that they do what's right by our people. I went on to say, if they, the government, don't like the constitution of Belize as is, then they should just as well go ahead and change it by following constitutionally prescribed, required processes, procedures, protocols, practices for legal changes and amendments. They're empowered to make laws. Of course, not just any law. Always remember that. They're empowered to make laws within the Constitution to govern the country. And those laws cannot be arbitrary and capricious, especially as regards to people's basic human rights. You cannot have police officers going out there and being judge, jury, and executioner all in one, beating up on civilians, unarmed civilians at that, okay? Breaking people's ribs, breaking their hands, shooting at some civilians, in some instances, killing civilians who are trying to run away from them, that are no threat to them, and then they are exonerated or being let off. From my vantage point, that is a crime committed under the color of law. And that kind of behavior should not be sanctioned by no government on the face of this earth. And I take umbrage and offense greatly to my government of Belize practicing those kind of inhumane behavior, to the point of having people so aggrieved now that people are now turning around and shooting at police stations, shooting at commissioners' home. People are now trying to take the law and take their own revenge back because of what these people are doing to them under the color of law. Where do you think that would head to? Our country becoming like a Haiti then, right? That people will get together as gangs, support each other, and turn their weapons against the police officers and against the government. That's not what we expect our country to be. We can't use tourism as the number one industry to support our government and have that kind of issue going on, because we will be declared as an unfit, was a failed state. So while these guys are playing fast and loose, they might be able to hustle a few dollars on the side. But they're crushing the future of the country and for future generations to come. Now I know there are some people in Belize, for example, that are quite happy with what's going on and how the government is managing, because they have seen previous government do the same, and the fact that other government come behind those previous ones that were doing criminal activities, the new ones, they come and they figure, okay, well, if the previous one did so bad, we can do just as well, or even maybe worse. All they could do is kick us out of office, according to them, right? And that should be good enough for them, and apparently good enough for their supporters. That's not the way for our country to be governed. But they know that we don't have a viable opposition in the country. So they could care less what some people, as in my case, as myself, think. In the first place, they'll tell you they're the mass party. They command the majority of the people in the country who vote for them and who put them in office. So why am I beating up my lip and talking to these issues or complaining about these issues? I do so because I have a right to do so, an opportunity to do so, and the intention to do so, backed up by my constitution, guaranteed under the laws of my country. Even though they go to the house and make bogus laws to try and suppress me and others, by stipulating that if we talk about them and offend them, that we can be charged not for a simple crime like it used to be under the status of, or under the situation of malignment or defamatory statements or whatever, but that it could be a more serious offense, a criminal offense, to where they can put you in jail not only for 12 months now, as the law was previously written, but as the law is now being modified, they can now haul you and put you into jail for up to 3 years. And because you're not going to get a hearing for your case anytime soon, you might even spend more than 3 years while waiting for your case to be heard. So by the time your case is heard, even if you're found innocent or not, they don't have enough evidence to prosecute you, you would have already spent this almost the same equal time just waiting in jail for your hearing. And after the hearing and you're declared not culpable or whatever, and you're free to go, the crazy head commissioner, who is also a lawyer, can get out there in public and stipulate that if he wants, he could just as well go and rearrest you under SOE or some other bogus charge. In other words, he has no respect for the legal system under which he operates, and he is actually a subordinate officer of the court. I don't need to remind him of that. I'm saying it because I want you, the general public, know and become educated to that reality. But he, as a lawyer, knows that. He's a lawyer, therefore, being a member of the bar and being an officer of the court, under whose jurisdiction he's compelled to abide by the rules of the legal system. And nowhere in our legal system or in our constitution he is granted or given any power beyond and above that of Section 20 of the Supreme Court or the law of the land or the Constitution per se. But he have the temerity to stipulate in public that if the court give people bail or if the court exonerate somebody, he can just exercise his, I don't know where he get the impression that it is his power, but he can just exercise his power according to him and rearrest whoever it is that he feel aggrieved about. I don't know. I think sometimes, okay, well, always good to say everything will come to your head, but sometimes, as in this case, I just go ahead and say it. Okay? And that is that it is my strong belief that the way this man speaks and comport himself and stipulate things in public is as if he feel like what comes out of his head because he went to law school should be the law of the land as well, as his colleagues stipulate and wish for. But he went to law school, and unless he did not attend all those classes or was asleep in some of them classes there's no justification for him to come out here in the public and say some of the things that he says. Because it either says that, the man came out with a credential from the law school. And I know for certainty they don't sell those kind of credentials in those particular law school in Jamaica and the other countries that our students go to take law classes. Okay? Because those are prestigious and highly regarded institutions. So they don't sell their degrees or their law certificates. So either this gentleman knows better and is playing the fool, or somehow or another he didn't get what he was supposed to get out of law school, or he forgot his legal training in the classroom or somewhere around before he got back to Belize. But he came back as a certified legal man. So therefore he should know better. Am I then to presume that yes, he knows better, but he also knows his current assignment? And that somewhere someone within his hierarchy is demanding of him to fulfill the requirements of the assignment that they delegated to him? For him to comport himself in that kind of way? For him to have no checks and balances in his own mind in terms of his knowledge, awareness, experience, and capacity to rationalize? And I would dare say that goes for his boss, young Mr. Karim Musa, Minister of Home Affairs. I call his name because I want them to know who I'm talking about, and I want him to know that I'm talking about him and what is it I'm talking about him about. Because he needs to deal with these matters substantively, since he is the person responsible for that ministry. If the jackal, Mr. Williams, Commissioner, is unable or incapable of rationalizing correctly and doing his job adequately, then it falls to his boss to checkmate him or to do what the boss needs to do in order for the proper service to the public is rendered. Because they are all collecting a salary. And from my vantage point, it would seem like they are collecting a salary under false pretense. Because if they are not doing the job, why collect the salary for that position? I would say even the Prime Minister. Why does he allow the Minister of Home Affairs and the Minister of Police to come to Cabinet and encourage Cabinet to authorize him to go ahead and write statutory instruments and state that generates state of emergencies that then, under the color of law, without it having been done properly and legally at that, because once it's not done properly and it's illegal, it's illegal. If it is illegal, it is illegal. If it violates the Constitution, it is illegal. And they can't use illegal, trumped up documentation to empower the police to go and commit crimes then against the civilians. Or maybe they don't see it like that. Okay? Somehow or another, it is possible that they don't see it like that. They're seeing that they're not prepared to do the job as police officers and arrest the criminals who are committing the mayhem and the crimes. But by putting a whole net over the whole society with the state of emergency, that oppresses and suppresses the people at large. But they don't care, as the Prime Minister says. The people in Southside, he says, for example, where they put the SOE or the state of emergencies, need to cool off. That's why he grabbed them and sent them to jail for 30 days. Now they come with this bogus process based on the old SOE that they have not renewed, by the way, correctly. They did not remedy the deficiencies of the old SOE that was illegal. But they use that same old illegal SOE and try to go to the House to extend it for another 90 days. When in fact they're only supposed to be able to extend for 30 days at a time. But they're right in the rules that they put to the House for the House to vote on, and according to them, because the House vote on it, whether the House vote on it 100% with all 31 legislators. If it is illegal, it is illegal. If it's unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional. Their powers are not above the Constitution. They are under the same Constitution. And when they make laws, it is required of them to make those laws within the bounds of the Constitution, which is why they have been losing all these cases recently. Because when the matter goes to court under judicial review and the court rules against them, who do you think is paying? They're not paying for these rulings out of their own pocket. They go to the government coffers and they spend the money out of the government coffers, which is why they can't come up with money to do the poverty alleviation program. They can't pay the teachers. They can't pay the retirees. They can't do all the things that they're supposed to be doing as a government. They don't have the cash flow. They take hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and give it to the crony and buy back land that they give the cronies them for a couple pennies on the dollar, and they go and buy it back for millions and millions of dollars overpriced. That's how the money is what they call washed, right? There's a presumption that the government is allowing money out of the general consolidated fund from the Treasury to pay for government services or assets that the government acquire. But government is acquiring them, the same asset that they give away to their cronies, and the price when they give it to them for less than what it's worth. And when they buy it back from them, they buy it back for 3 and 4 and 5 times what it's really priced or should worth. As in the case of this land that they're just trying to acquire now for the new hospital in Belmopan. There's land being sold next door to that piece of land, 10 acres of land for less than $100,000 Belize, which is less than 50,000 US for 10 acres in the same vicinity where that piece of land is. But they're going to turn around and buy 20 acres for, what was it? $6 million. Okay? Are you going to tell me that the valuators them in the Department of Valuation for the Lands Department are incompetent enough to not realize that that is the case and that those lands are not worth the price that the government is planning to pay for it? And that they could not give the government a proper valuation for the raw land without any minerals, without any gold, without any silver, without any bauxite, without any petroleum, without any diamonds, just raw land that the government made available to these people for a few pennies. Probably they probably gave them maybe for probably $50 an acre or something like that, or it wasn't much at the time. And for 20 acres now, okay, let's say they want to give them $1,000 an acre. Or, because of the location of the land, let's say they want to give them $5,000 an acre, or maybe $10,000. I mean, I could exaggerate. I could come up with some exaggerating. Let's say they want to give them, what, $50,000 an acre. $50,000 for 20 acres is how much? $50 times 20 is how much? That's about 100,000 or something like that, if I'm calculating correctly. I don't have no calculator in front of me, and my mind is not really set on numbering and things like those, because I'm trying to focus on my thing. But I mean, for less than $1 million, they could have paid over and over for that 20-acre piece of land. Is basically where I'm going at. In other words, it's overpaid for. Why should it have to be? Mr. Brishenio is not paying for it out of his pocket, or any of the other ministers, or any other people them buying that land out of their own pocket from this individual. So let's say they are giving the man $1 million for the 20 acres. That's a lot of money compared to where he get it for initially. Or let's say they get $2 million. Or let's say they get $3 million, which is half of the total that they're talking about right now. You see how far my exaggeration went? Give him $3 million. Where did the other $3 million go to? Other than back into the coffers of some political connected individual or entity. Of course, that's how those things roll. And it's not the first or the last or only situation such as that, because that's how political financing occurs, which is why we have no law for political financing in our country. These jackals, vultures, and hyenas will never make a law that they could get caught up into in terms of administrative procedures that they should be confining and allowing themselves to abide by. But for all intents and purposes, I'll skip that point. And since my time is running out on me again, I just want to let me see what part I was. Okay. Okay, I read that part. I didn't want to read the wrong part. Or I'm trying to figure out where I was at the time when I broke and went off into my ranting again, no? Because I keep doing that and then I lose focus on the material. If they do, I read that part of it. Okay, the Belizean politicians, as the legislators, are not empowered unto themselves, even with the affirming vote of all 31 members in the Belize House of Representatives, which is to say 100% of them. They are not authorized to create SIs, statutory instruments, nullifying or replacing the assented acts they rely on for legal effect or vested assented legal powers. That is to say, the legislature has no power unto itself to create SIs or statutory instruments, which are basically SIs, or SOEs, which is to say state of emergencies. They have no powers as such, even if it's 100% of the members of Congress, all 31 of them, 100% from both mass parties who occupy the current legislature. Even if all of them get together, they are not able to create illegal or unconstitutional laws. That's what the Constitution says. Any other law, which are not the Constitution unto itself, but other law, substantive law that the legislature creates, cannot arbitrarily and capriciously violate the Constitution. And how many different ways we need to set up for our politicians and our public to get the sense of what it means. I'd venture to say that most of our politicians, them, especially the lawyers among them, know what I'm talking about and know what's right and what's wrong. But yet they empower and aid and abet each other in furthering the crimes against our Constitution and against our people. Why? Since we are the one that entrust them with that power, I don't know why. It can't be that they are so hard up that they have to abuse, misuse, and mistreat us without cause at that. Without cause. Rather than exercising a sleight of hand, pretending to amend the acts, for example, that comprises the Constitution of Belize, while persisting to unconstitutionally aggregate and illegally exercise powers as illegal power grab by sleight of hand and temporary statutory instruments creation with the apparent intent to mislead, bamboozle the general public who do not know or understand or read their Constitution into believing that such statutory instrument that they create should have the effect of altering and amending the Constitution of Belize by ministerial edicts or political wet dreams. In other words, they should know what they're doing, and they're doing what they're doing because they just feel like doing it. And so, the mass majority of the people who support them and aid and abet them in their criminal conduct, some of them might be doing so quite unaware, right? Unwittingly. And others might be doing so or going along and supporting and aiding and abetting that kind of criminality against us quite wittingly, knowing exactly. But they are being so warned. They are getting their sweets. And so long as they get their sweets, they don't care what else is happening to anybody else or to the country, as a matter of fact, which is unfortunate, because then that's a lack of patriotism. I would say I also went on to write another few paragraphs, and it's getting a little long and maybe monotonous. I have 15 more minutes to go, and I thought I would have been finished with this particular one except for the elaborations that I was doing, because I had another one that goes along with this that I wanted was to speak to. I'll probably have to leave that other one for another night, because uh, right now I still have quite a bit on this one, and my time might run out, and I might not be able to finish it up. I went on to say under number 4, item number 4, to which the Constitution of Belize, Part 2, Chapter 10 of the Referendum Act, under subsection 2, notwithstanding subsection 1, it mandates that a referendum shall be held on the following issues. For example, under paragraph A, I said, any amendment to Part 2 of the Constitution which derogates or takes away from the fundamental human and civil rights and freedoms guaranteed therein to the citizens of Belize and Belizeans at home and abroad, in order to derogate civil rights that are not appropriately acquired or duly vested, constitutionally imbued, and forbidden of the legislator to arbitrarily and capriciously derogate, and which are being passed off as legitimate amendments or alterations to the Constitution of Belize, which are then incorporated subsequently into the revisions of the Constitution of Belize, thereby then constituting a grave travesty of the highest magnitude, and therein ultravirusing the Constitution of Belize negatively. In other words, all those words are saying, in effect, that by the government going to the House and make unconstitutional laws that are not within the bounds of the Constitution, and create arbitrary and capricious laws that violates the Constitution, those other laws that they create that violates the Constitution are actually null and void. And instead of doing that, they should be doing or making proper laws to help in the proper governance and furtherance and development of the country. But no, they take these bogus laws that are actually unconstitutional, some of which have been ruled by the High Court as such. As a matter of fact, I recall some instances, quite a few of them, where the case went to the Supreme Court. It went to the appellate court above the Supreme Court. It went to the Regional Caribbean Court of Justice and came back to the government with instructions to cease and desist making such bastardizations of the law and of the Constitution, and to take out the offending part of the Constitution that they had inserted in there incorrectly. And the Barrow administration failed to follow through and do that. The now Belizean administration came into power and has failed to follow through and do that. And apparently, not only have they failed to do that, they seem to be trying to enjoy the existence of those offending part of the Constitution that they put in there illegally and unconstitutionally, acting as if they are actually in there proper constitutionally, and they want to enjoy the fruits of those unconstitutional passages. Because now they hide behind it and they try to create laws under the same guise. And to say that because they have not only just a majority or a super majority, they have an actual super majority in the House. But as I had pointed out before, even if they have that super majority, plus all the extras then from the opposition, as being a total of 100% of the legislators, there are some things that they cannot do to the Constitution that they are forbidden to do. They cannot go and make a law that eviscerate the Constitution and or the separation of powers and or the laws that govern the Bill of Rights or inalienable and constitutionally guaranteed freedoms. They have no powers to do that, but yet they continue making these bogus SOEs, statutory instruments, and state of emergencies, and arrest people, put people in jail for 30 days, and no one to keep them there for another 60 days, up to 90 days. And the law says that if they were to have done a proper SOE and had extended it, that proper SOE, not the bogus one that they are now extending, if they had done a proper SOE and extend the proper SOE, they could have done it for up to a whole year, a month at a time. But they want to revise the law to make it say that they can have that extension to any limits at any time that they feel like and want to, because they're empowered to make laws. And they're disregarding what the Constitution says, that they're only authorized to do those type of law for 30 days at a time. So now they're vexed. They want to get rid of the whole damn Constitution. Why again? Because they want to create like I said, a republic. And why again? Because they want to become their own head of state. And they can't do that under the current Constitution. So now they went and they made a revision in the Constitution under the guise that they, the House of Representatives, with its majority PUP government parliamentarians, are authorizing and have authorized a PCC Act. And that PCC Act then authorized the government to take millions of dollars from the Treasury to pay for the functioning of the Commission. The Commission requested about between $7 and $8 million. The government only gave them less than $2 million so far. And the government is hot under the collar for the Commission to wrap up its activities and submit whatever report it can submit so that the government can move on and pursue its original objective, which is not to make amendments to the Constitution, as they are currently empowered to do and have been doing from the first day of independence until today, day that we're having this discussion. Because every month they go to the House, they're doing some kind of, shenanigan to allow them to get some extra money, or they are making some kind of laws to facilitate some outside pressures that's coming on them. Those laws not accruing to our best interest or well-being, but that makes us their onerous laws that put the population of the country in a situation of becoming scofflaw or violating those onerous laws. Okay? But they don't care, because they are willing to facilitate foreign entities and foreign powers to crush us, and to crush our country. So long as they can keep governing and keep hard and pulling the system and messing around with our treasury and our national assets, and accrue onto themselves those national assets and onto their friends, and subvert even our treasury, like I said, to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars. That's not what they were elected to do. To abuse our economic situation and to keep putting pressure on the people when they give out all the money now to Mr. Ashcroft and the other people that they're playing hanky-panky with. They have to go and raise the taxes in order to get the money that they need to pay or partially pay for some of the services that the government owe, such as government employee salary and other things. They take the money that they're getting from the BPO and all the other private entities, them under Social Security payments, and they lend those money out to their cronies to the tune of multiple millions of dollars. Some in the past got $30 million in one case of the Novelos them and others, from Social Security and DFC, to the point where they broke the Development Finance Corporation, the bank of that was supposed to have been there to provide funding for people to be able to, get loans to do business. They depleted all the funds and broke the bank. The bank got reconstituted under the next political party when they came into power. And now these idiots are there now taking the Social Security money as well and lending it out to privateers to go and build buildings so that the government could go and rent those buildings from the same privateers that they... Why can't they be smart enough to take the same damn money or borrow the money from Social Security themselves, build the building themselves, and own the building and has to pay no money to any private entrepreneurs that they are facilitating from dead raise? But when I say there are a bunch of jackals, hyenas, and a bunch of mobsters under the guise of a legitimately elected government, they complain and they say I'm degrading them. I'm talking bad about them. I'm talking bad about the actions and the policies of state that they pursue that end up aggregating wealth onto themselves and impoverishing the society and not having enough money for the poverty alleviation program, to give the school so that the teachers don't have to spend their money to buy the supplies for the children, or to give the kids them food at the school them, because some of the parents now have a job or have no money and they have to be coming to school on empty belly. But these jackals have no concerns about those issues. The issues of governance has no part to play in their mindset. Nevertheless, I did not finish read the commentary, the essay. It was kind of long, in addition to all the extra side commentaries elaboration that I was making. I will cease and desist from doing that because my time has expired. I'm on borrowed time now, and I need to close the show. And the rest of that particular essay may have to be read on another occasion. And the other one that I had intended was to read as well may have to be postponed or left for some other occasion. But I've belabored, and as a one-man show, I think I've overdone it. And therefore I need to cease and desist because the program should only have gone to 1.5 hours. And I'm at 1:28 right now, and I need to do some house cleaning, such as expressing my gratitude to those who are tuning in tonight to hear the program, for having spent your valuable time. I hope that this particular program, and all of our other programs, as a matter of fact, will accrue some benefits, public benefit at that, because the purpose of our platform is for public education and public ranting and dealing with issues that are of concern to our Belizeans at home and abroad. So I just want to say thank you for those who tune in tonight and those who will be tuning in later on or afterwards at your convenience. I do appreciate your valuable time, and I hope that I had made a difference in terms of at least articulating or speaking to some things that may be of your concern as well. And if what I spoke to was not of your concern, I hope that you'll make it your concern, because at the end of the day, only we, the Belizeans, can discipline our politicians when they are mistreating us. And only we, if we're informed or adequately informed, would be in a position to understand and do something to help redress our needs, or to help make our country a better place, not only for ourselves, but for our children and future generations to come. Good night, Belize and Belizeans. God bless always.